And Jesus sends him in to a city that is not very big, that would be overrun with 6 times its normal population, and says, you'll see a man carrying a water jar. Follow him. This poor dude with the water jar. You want something? And God said, I want it to happen like that. I want it. I'm not gonna use a spectacular sign. I'm gonna give you a simple instruction. And when you see the man with the jar, if you will have the faith to follow him in a house you've never been in before, when you get there, you'll find the preparations already made. See, you got it out of sequence. You keep waiting to obey when God confirms, but God says, I only confirm after you obey. I don't confirm before, I confirm after the fact. So go into the city and follow the man. And I'm gonna move through what you call coincidence. Wow. The coincidence often looks a whole lot like the miracle. Just thinking back over my life, I realized that it has become more difficult for me the longer that I've walked with Christ to really admit that some of the things that I write off as a coincidence were really his hand at work. Remember when I told you, Eric, that we were driving, it was like a week after I had given my life to Christ, and I almost got hit by that car. I don't know if you remember this. I remember it so clearly. It was the first time that I saw, wow, if I had gone when I was supposed to go, and if I had not stopped, that car that plowed through that stoplight would have hit me at age 16. And I remember feeling so grateful that just seeing something that could have happened, that I guess you could call it a coincidence if you want to, but something in me believes that the reason my car didn't go at that moment, I forgot to tell you this part, the car was old and it wouldn't go. That's why it didn't go. Why wouldn't the car go? Because my dad bought it at Dick's Auto Shop for $800? Is that why my Chrysler Laser wasn't go? Was it a coincidence? Or was it God needed me to be here for a little while longer? Was that a coincidence? Was it a coincidence that Holly asked me to get her an ACT pre-test? And she didn't know she would make all of my babies and carry the fruit of my, well, anyway. She couldn't have known at the time that I would change her name, but was it a coincidence that of all the high school students at Revival, at First Baptist Church, Moncks Corner, she chose to walk up to me? I'm telling you, there was something magnetic on me that day. It wasn't good looks. I didn't have that going for me, but something drew her over. Was it a coincidence? Was it a coincidence, Amy, that I was sick the first time I met your husband? And I had to ask him, do you know the name of the doctor? And he said, I'll call you with the number. And he called me later that afternoon to give me Chris Denning's number because I didn't know anybody because we had just moved to Shelby. Was it a coincidence that I said, hey, why don't y'all come over to dinner Tuesday? Holly will cook fried rice. We will eat carbs and be fat together. Was it a coincidence that you and Holly like to shop together on Saturday and spend all of our money so that one day we could start a church, travel the world, 5 continents later? Was it a coincidence that I had strep throat? Was it a coincidence? Was it a coincidence that you stood in my book line at Liberty University until the very last person had gone and considered walking away because the line was too long? Was it a coincidence that I never signed books because I feel sometimes like I don't get to spend enough time with people and it feels a little impersonal for me? Not that I don't want to meet people, but I talk to them for 20 minutes each and then the whole line gets mad and they start riots and it's a bad situation. Was it a coincidence that that day I did? And was it a coincidence that you were the last one, which gave me more time to talk to you, and that I wrote GTA, Greater Things Ahead? I didn't know you were from the greater Toronto area and that we would have a campus in Toronto one day. Was it a coincidence? That a wrestler was in my hotel room in Colorado who would visit Africa with me just years later as we preached the gospel? Was it a coincidence that Adrian Dupre tricked us both into being in that program by describing it to us in a way that wasn't exactly reflective of reality, but God somehow tricked us into that hotel room in Denver, Colorado so that we could get chased out of Chinese nightclubs together and one day do ministry? Was that a coincidence? Because I imagine from the standpoint of the man who carried the jar of water, this was just a coincidence. But from the standpoint of the disciples, they knew this is something more. And sometimes I think faith is just as simple as second guessing what you call coincidence. It may be a coincidence. I'm not suggesting that you turn into one of these people who blames everything on God. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you met these people? I got a parking space right at the front of the gym. It was God. That wasn't God. You needed to walk. That's why you went to the gym for exercise. The devil gave you the spot closest. If it had been God, he would have given you some extra exercise. Challenge your categories. Was it a coincidence when Holly said, I want to go to this farmer's market? Was it a coincidence that I agreed to do it? That's a miracle. But we were on vacation at Sullivan's Island. Why not? Was it a coincidence that Addie Mae saw me from her cupcake booth? Was it a coincidence that she walked over and said, I'm sorry to bug you. I can see you're with your family, but I listened to your podcast. Can I get a selfie? Was it a coincidence when she said, I'm going to call my pastor, he's going to be so jealous? Was it a coincidence when she said, you should come to revival at my church next week? And I said, I don't have anything but shorts. I'm on vacation, sweetheart, but you can write down the dates of the revival and I'll put them away and never look at them again because I'm on vacation. I didn't say that, but I thought it. Was it a coincidence that somehow I kept the piece of paper and something told me to check in on it and I found out that one of the guest speakers had canceled? Was it a coincidence that Addie Mae had mentioned to me that when she called her pastor, he said that they had invited me to speak at the revival, but my office had told them that I was on vacation that week? Was it a coincidence when I looked up the number and called him, and when he called me back, he said, we just came out of a prayer meeting and we were praying that God would provide a speaker for us tonight, and you're the one we originally requested for this night? Was that a coincidence? Was it a coincidence that they wanted to prepare the lamb and they were sitting with the lamb? Was it a coincidence that in all of Jerusalem, all of the people carrying water jars all funneled to this one man who had to be in one place at one time so that he could lead them into the room? And you say you don't see any evidence of God's working in your life. What you've been calling coincidence, God calls evidence. That's how you know I was with you. Was it a coincidence that you came to church today? Was it a coincidence that this is finally the weekend where you said, okay, I'll go to your stupid loud church if you'll leave me alone? Was it a coincidence that I was preaching on coincidence for you to be here? And I'm not telling you that you always have to tell people that it was God that got you the table at the restaurant and that it was God that put gas in your car. It wasn't God that put gas in your car. You put gas in your car. If you don't put gas in your car will run out of gas. Don't get weird with it. I'm just saying what Thomas Edison said. He said, coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. What I think we've got to learn to do in our lives is to see Christ in the coincidence. And the next time it happens, because it's going to happen this week. It happened to me last week. It happened to me last week that I was walking through the airport, Newark, New Jersey. Praise the Lord for a 4-hour layover in Newark. What a blessing. Might as well go over to this bookstore. Oh, I recognize that book. So-and-so mentioned that book on their podcast. So-and-so happened to be a person I've been in contact with that I grew up with, and I want to do a special project with this person for our church, but I haven't been able to connect. And when I said so-and-so's name, I walked around the corner and I saw a little flyer on the window of the bookstore, and it had so-and-so's name on it. I said, that's weird. I was just saying his name, and there he is on that flyer. And then I saw where it said book signing. And I said, well, that's weird. Who does a book signing in an airport? Isn't that crazy? I was just said his name, and there's his picture, and there he's doing a book signing in this airport. Wonder when he's doing it. Wouldn't it be weird if he was doing it today? And he was doing it today? Wouldn't it be weird if he was doing it right now? And he was doing it right now? Wouldn't it be weird if I texted him and he texted me back and we spent an hour together and we set a date to do the thing that we were trying to do? Wouldn't it be weird if all that happened, not when I was trying to make it happen, but when I was on the layover? What I'm saying, if you have ears to hear it, is that Jesus Christ wants to recategorize some of the things in your life that you saw as a coincidence. Many of you came to Charlotte against your will. You came because this is where the job brought you. Is it a coincidence that you're in Charlotte? Or is it an assignment? Is it a coincidence that of all the people who could have been carrying a jar at this moment, that jar happened to be at that spot? It's no coincidence. Before they ever got to the spot where the man carrying the jar was, Jesus had already had a conversation. And all you've got to do really to see God move in your life is to keep a room ready for him when he comes. And you will find a large, spacious room, already furnished, already prepared, awaiting your obedience. It's already ready, but you won't see it if you miss it in the coincidence. Tradition holds that this upper room was situated in the highest place in the whole city of Jerusalem. Isn't that cool that Jesus knew the exact place where he wanted to take the Last Supper and institute communion? Isn't it cool that he prayed his high priestly prayer in John 14 through 17 from the highest place in the city? It couldn't have been just any house. It had to be that house. It had to be that time. It had to be that day. It's no coincidence. God is in the coincidence. God is in the common. God is in the conflict. And you keep stepping over the rock and there's water in it. And you keep missing the cloud when it moves because you're looking down. And you're sitting with the Lamb and you're missing him. Stand to your feet. I want to pray for your life this week. Particularly, I would like to pray for those of you who in one of the three categories that I mentioned at the beginning. And I want to thank you so much for not leaving when I begin my opening prayer. It makes it so much more effective when we pray, when we don't have a lot of movement, when God is touching people's lives. And I really appreciate that so much, your willingness to stay with us through this moment. I want to pray for those of you this week who are going to have Addie Mae at the farmer's market come up to you with a cupcake. Or are going to be Addie Mae bringing the cupcake over. And God is setting you up to be an answer to a prayer that you don't even know has been prayed. It's no coincidence. It's no coincidence. And all I want you to do this week is give it a second look. When the conflict comes, look at it a second way. Look at it a second time. Look at it a different way. Is this a conflict or is this an opportunity? Is this just a cross or is this a resurrection? Is this a storm or is this a stage for God to reveal his His glory in my situation. Is this just a meal, or is this a message? Is this just a coincidence, or is this my calling? It could be a coincidence, or it can be a miracle. What are the chances that of all of the men in Jerusalem carrying water, this one would be at that place at that time? What are the chances? I'll tell you the chances. 100%. Because when you walk in obedience, the outcome is guaranteed. This will work. I said it will work. It will happen. It has to happen. It shall come to pass. If I walk where He told me to walk and do what He told me to do at the right time, it has to happen. It's no coincidence. God has you here. It's no coincidence. What you went through, it wasn't to destroy you. It was to develop you. God is in it. God is in the conflict. God is in the comment. God is in the diapers. God is in the math homework. God is in the traffic. God is in the layoff. I'm telling you, God is in it. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld His glory. Help us to see it, God. In every season and situation, help us to find living water in dry places. I thank you for your Spirit, the Comforter who guides us into all truth. I lift up each circumstance represented in this room today, online, our family joining us around the world, those watching on television. I pray that you would change the categorization system by which we have organized our life to prioritize comfort and convenience over calling. We want to look for you in crowded streets. We want to see you in impossible situations.